Um, Cities may enforce objective zoning standards. So this is where, what's an objective zoning standard, right? Is there any sort of personal interpretation that's involved in a code section? It has to be something that is very much cut and dry. Your property, if it's going to require articulation within your building, it has to be very specific and already established of, for example, 5 feet of building frontage, your building has to be articulated by, your wall has to step in by 2 inches, for a dimension of 4 inches and then come back out. Something very specific like that. I mean, that's an objective zoning standard, but the city can't say we want your building to be blue, right? Because then it's like, well, what shade of blue, right? It's up for interpretation. Now, there's a limitation on what the cities can impose, and this is sort of what I like to call the unless clause, right? They can impose these objective zoning standards unless there's an objective zoning standard that would physically preclude the construction of 2 units on either lot, right? 800 square foot units on either lot. And that's where, some of these standards that that some of the local jurisdictions are coming up with that are, prohibitive for SB 9. There's opportunity there, I think, to challenge that, right? And then I think we covered the lot split. I wanted to walk through, had an exhibit. Our good friends at the Los Angeles City Planning Department, they gave a wonderful presentation to the City Planning Commission for Los Angeles. And, in that presentation, they came up with an exhibit, an example that I wanted to just share in this webinar here. So what this shows is an example of a single family property. City of Los Angeles uses, R1 zone in this example here, fronting along a street. And this is a pretty standard size, as I mentioned, R1, 6,000 square feet. It's probably one of the most common lot sizes and zones in the city. So you have 50 foot lot width, fronting a street. You have an existing situation where you have a single family with a driveway to a garage, a detached garage in the rear of the property, right? And this is relatively common, amongst the city. So in this circumstance, assuming this property qualifies, you could do a lot split on this parcel, right? And you could create, this says 2 bedroom, 1 bath, but you could actually create 2 of these. This could be a duplex in the rear property. And assuming there aren't any existing tenants, I think that's what I forgot to cover. Assuming there aren't any existing tenants, or your property isn't protected under rent stabilization ordinance, or is not a restricted affordable unit for the existing single family, you could also convert that to a duplex, right? So you could be left here with, in this situation, with a lot split where you could have 4 units total. And then the lot split is important, and John, you'll get into this. It will allow for, I think, better financing targets, and also the ability to sell off this other lot. So it does help to add this density. Now, in the city's example, I thought this was fantastic that the city came out with this, because it's kind of although the city of LA has not, released their official memorandum and guidelines for the processing of these types of cases, they did sort of tip their hat to what to expect here. And this is a driveway situation where they have identified 4 feet. Typically, the city would want to see 20 feet minimum, for access to the rear property, and here they've identified that the actual lot itself is running to the street, right? So when SB 9 says that they want your lot to have access to the public right of way, what does that mean exactly, right? And how are local jurisdictions going to be incorporating that requirement, right? Can that be accomplished by having the quote unquote access to public right of way? Can that be accomplished via a community driveway or an easement rather than the actual lot touching the right of way? The other question is, what if there's an alley in the back, of the site? Is that considered a public right of way? And these are all questions I think that will be answered as it's applied, and as these local jurisdictions will, start developing their ordinances and their policies to accommodate these types of developments. In this example, the city of LA, they have identified, this funky lot situation here, where it's like almost a flag lot, but they have like this other little area here, probably to accommodate parking. Parking is not required if you are within a certain distance of transit, right? Or a car share program. But in single family cases, then in suburban areas, I think it's likely that parking would be required.